Special treat for you all today, team. We have Donald Trump Jr. Joining us now. He is, of course, the president's son. He's also now not just an author, but #1 New York Times bestselling author of his new book, Triggered. Don, thanks so much for joining, and congrats, by the way, on the big #1 New York Times. That's awesome.
Thank you very much, man. No, it's been pretty cool.
So tell me, what do you want people to take from this book? I mean, anybody who follows you on Twitter or social media or sees you on TV has some idea where you stand on the issues. But what do they get from Triggered that they need to know going into this 2020 pivotal re-election year?
Well, I think they get a lot of insight into the family. I mean, I can do a lot on Twitter. I've gotten pretty good at making a point in 280 characters or less, but, having 200, 300 pages to do it, I think you get to see a lot more of the storyline, some of the narrative, the things we've gone through, both during sort of the incredible campaign, getting to be the tip of the spear of the greatest political upset in history, all the way to probably being the first family member of a sitting president to be ever literally targeted by the opposition, by the other side in the Mueller hoax, being the #2 target of that after my father, and some of the ups and downs. You get to see sort of my childhood. And how, I say I'm an unlikely conservative in where I'm from, right? I'm the son of a billionaire from New York City who went to an Ivy League school, doesn't produce a lot of conservatives. But, having a mother that escaped communism and the experience as a child of having grandparents that were active in our lives that brought me over there every summer. And I got to experience those, bread lines that, Bernie and others, think are so wonderful. And I can assure you, having seen them firsthand, they're not. So it's a little bit of everything. I spent quite a bit of time, obviously, talking about the hypocrisy that conservatives face in the mainstream media, but also the censorship side of the social media platforms, which are becoming such a big thing and going to be such a major influence in the 2020 election. So, it's a pretty full gamut.
Which of the media outlets do you think has been, one of the things that that the president, your father, and obviously this has been a part of the movement. One of the things I think has been the most refreshing, at least from my perspective, is somebody who will take on the media, the bias, the lies. Is there one outlet for you, one platform that you think has been the most unfair to you personally or to your family?
Well, listen, I think you could probably point to some pretty flagrant examples. In my case, literally all of them. I mean, name one that wasn't out there basically saying that I was guilty of treason for 2.5 years, and then it's like, oh, Mr. Mueller, have you even read the report that bears your name? Well, that's not within my purview. So I mean, they'll all run with anything, and that's the reality of it. Is the mainstream media today has decided and made the cognizant decision to be the marketing wing of the Democrat Party. There's not even a pretense of objectivity anymore. They've just given all of that up to push their, generally speaking, leftist narrative. And so, the most recent example, the one that just strikes me and perhaps irks me the most, is sort of the Washington Post and the al-Baghdadi incident. When they can take the founder and leader of ISIS, a man that has murdered and raped people, a man that has lit people on fire after dousing them in gasoline in cages, to make him into, and I quote, an austere religious scholar, shows you the level of sickness in these people, in their minds. And it really makes me wonder. My father used to get a lot of help for saying, like, the mainstream media is the enemy of the people, but you start seeing some of the stuff that they do, the bias, and you start wondering, like, well, man, I can't imagine someone not wondering if that's in fact the case, because they certainly don't seem to like America.
Now, Don, we've seen that there's unfairness in the way the Democrats are using the apparatus of the government to go after their political enemies. That's nothing surprising. That's been going on for quite some time. In fact, it even predates your father, although the president is, I think, the single biggest target of these machinations. But even knowledge of innocence is not necessarily enough, I would think, to make somebody not worry about being a target of these efforts. I mean, when the Mueller probe was coming after you, even though you knew that you weren't a traitor, you hadn't done anything wrong, did you have some nights where there's some times where you thought, maybe they're going to try to take me down, even though there's no there there?
Well, I mean, I definitely thought that was their goal. I mean, the reality is, I sort of, perhaps I write in the book, it sort of took me 41 years to realize I was a lot more like my father than perhaps I had ever thought, which is when you back us in the corner and when you force us to sort of fight, we will, and we will fight hard. So, I mean, I talk about sort of the stories of even my lawyers being like, you can't be as aggressive on TV and on social, when these guys are doing this, I'm like, listen, I don't care, man. Like, I'm not going to just give in to them. I'm not going to let my kids one day read about, well, Donald Jones, he pled the fifth, and he was like, no way. Like, I'll take the contempt of Congress. I'll take the this. I'll do whatever, or I'll fight back. But I ain't doing that because I just won't let them read about that, someday in the future about their father, because that's the way that system works if you're on our side, which is even if it's the prudent legal move, you can't do it because the soundbite will kill you. And so, I didn't lose sleep over it because I knew I was right, but I also probably have a little different response than most people do to that kind of stress. And I mean, yeah, there was no secret that literally half of Congress was out there saying that I committed treason, a crime punishable by death. Now, they couldn't back that up. Only Adam Schiff apparently saw the evidence that he would say, on air every night. No one else had seen it. I guess he forgot to turn it over to Robert Mueller. But, it was pretty brutal, and you see that viciousness. And I think one of the points I make in Triggered is, like, if they can do that to me, if they can do that and what they've done and continue to do to the sitting president of the United States, if the social media platforms can censor me and him and, shadow ban us and everything else that they're doing, like, who can't they do it to, Buck? Who aren't they already doing it to that you may not even, know? I mean, and that's a scary notion. I mean, that's sort of, I think it's a big part of why you got Trump, because other people feel that same way. But I think it really bodes well for us in 2020, understanding that we're up, fighting a much larger uphill battle because they'll be trying to suppress him so much more and all of us and the people who are supportive. But it's also, you watch the spectacle, and I say spectacle, very seriously, because that's all it is at this point. I mean, you had a congressman yesterday saying that hearsay, I heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend who heard it from a friend. Hearsay is actually much better than actual evidence. Like, oh, well, that's only true if you have no actual evidence, which they don't. And yet they will continue to perpetuate these hoaxes to get what they want, which is to, subvert the will of the people, reverse the 2016 election. And, that's when the impeachment started. I mean, the impeachment started on November 9th, 2016, when my father beat the chosen one and beat the establishment.
We're talking to Donald Trump Jr., author of the #1 New York Times bestseller Triggered, which is out in bookstores now, also available on Amazon. Don, are you surprised by some of the people? Because, I know that in the book you write about your personal experience, your life, and then obviously there must be a substantial focus on the last few years. Are you surprised by some of the people that at one time were very close to your father's presidency and perhaps close to him personally, who have very openly and very clearly turned on him?
I'm not surprised. My father seemed, actually ready for that. I mean, I write in the book, I sort of do a whole chapter on sort of, the prelude to his announcement. And, we went through the thing as a family and yada, yada. And I remember going down in the elevator with him this was June 16th, 2015, the day he announced. We sort of went down in the elevator. He got off in the lobby, went down to the escalator. We went down to go watch him. And he just looks me in the eye and he just goes, and now we find out who our real friends are. And I mean, truer words have not been spoken in life or politics. He just had a really innate understanding for people, for human nature. If you do, and say the things that you need to say to do what's right for this country and to get things done and to win, people they're gonna ostracize you. They're gonna run to the media. They're gonna go for that sort of leftist coverage. You see that today. Like the people who were Trump supporters, there's a couple out there that were big that, hey, supported me. And then 2 days later, they're turning on the president because, they're from New York and they're trying to raise a fund from, New York City Democrats. And, that's not going so well as a Trump supporter. So we're going to flip and we're going to, you see people's true human nature. And it's unfortunate that it's oftentimes very bad, to a point where it's sad. But what was cool about the moment when my father said that is, he recognized it, so it showed he really understood how the real world works. But more importantly, he knew how vicious it would be, and he did it anyway. He did it anyway because it was the right thing to do for America. It was the right thing to do for the people of this country who just want to live their American dream again. and had been failed so many times by politicians over and over, making promises, having no intention or, frankly, no ability to actually deliver on those promises because they just weren't competent in anything other than being politicians. They had no business understanding, no sense, and yet they're making $1 trillion decisions that our children and grandchildren will be beholden to. So it was really cool to see that he knew how bad it was and was willing to do it anyway, willing to take those hits because he didn't need this job, but he did it because it's the best thing for our future.
Clearly, the next year is going to be spent by you and other people in the president's inner circle trying to make sure that we have 4 more years of Trump. And I wish you well on that journey, and we'll do what I can from my perspective to help. Just wondering, though, down the line, you think you might step into the arena in a different way?
Well, right now, my only focus is 2020. I mean, I want another 4 more years of this. Obviously, he's accomplished incredible things despite unprecedented incoming, but unlike anything any president has ever taken before, and he's still getting it done. So I want a few more years of that to make sure that, we can, rid the swamp of some of these bad actors, that we can call out this nonsense. If we can do that, we can reset the course of this country in a positive way for many years to come. I do enjoy the game. I mean, I do like being out there. I like seeing the difference that it's making in people's lives. I've never really been much for the New York City sort of rubber chicken dinner charity circuit scene. I'm probably much more at home in many respects. In the Rust Belt, in the Midwest, out there, whether it's hunting, fishing, shooting, all my hobbies that bring me there. So it is so cool to see those people living better lives and having more opportunity, and not fearing for their children's futures in the same way. So I do like it, but again, for now, my only focus is 2020, and once we get that, we can talk.
All right, Donald Trump Jr., everybody, New York Times #1 best-selling author. The book is Triggered. Go out and grab your copy now. Don, thanks so much for making the time. Congrats and good luck.
Thank you very much, Buck. Really appreciate it.
We are saying, and what this campaign is about is not just winning the election. It is telling the 1% and the corporate elites, who, by the way, in case you haven't noticed it, are getting very nervous lately. The billionaires are actually getting very emotional. They're breaking down. They want to take our money. Oh, my God. How terrible can these people be? We only have $150 billion. They want us to pay taxes. What is this country coming to?
Bernie Sanders is out there with demagoguery, no facts, no truth, no nothing. They want us to pay taxes, only 150. First of all, who 150 billion? Does anyone have 150 billion? Who's even talking about? Oh man, it's people just like to hear this stuff. They like to hear that the rich are going to get roughed up. The really, really rich are going to be squeezed. I've got to tell you, it's fascinating to see. I mean, Democrats are getting what they deserve here, especially very wealthy Democrats, because the way that this has been set up for a long time for the particularly wealthy Democrats is that they buy off, their guilt, their sin of all this acquisition of wealth is dealt with by supporting left-wing causes, by being a Democrat, by saying you care so much about poor people. I mean, you see this also where it doesn't matter what you give to charity. That doesn't expunge the sin of tremendous financial success. What you have to do, according to these Democrats, what must occur is supporting left-wing causes. Look at when one of the Koch brothers passed away relatively recently. They were very clear on the left that it didn't matter that he had given tons of money. I mean, I can't even count. I mean, lots and lots and lots of big checks to different artistic endeavors, charitable foundations. No, because he was not even really a Republican, kind of a libertarian. The Koch brothers are very, very on some issues, rather socially liberal. You have to be a left-wing billionaire, or else your billions are the equivalent of ill-gotten gains. That had been the way that it was. Now it's more, if you're a billionaire, period, we might have to sacrifice your property rights on the altar of Bernie Sanders' socialism. And they're going to be saying things like, "Oh, it's just a little bit here and a little bit there." It's going to be quite a lot of money, actually. And the people that are pushing this, and you know this, whether it's Sanders or Warren, they don't understand the ramifications. They don't understand what the economic impact will be of these different policies that they're pushing. All they really know is that people on the left like to hear about how bad billionaires are. The big, bad billionaires.
We're going to take their money, we're going to take it away from them, make sure that they can't actually continue to be the plutocrats, the fat cats, the billionaires.
It used to be from Bernie, the millionaires and the billionaires, but then people found out that Bernie Sanders, prominent socialist, has 3 houses and is himself a millionaire. So that makes it a little bit more. That makes it a little trickier. That makes it a little harder, you know.
The ultra millionaires and the billionaires, millionaires in the 10 million plus category. So it's not like you have a lake house in Vermont. You got to have a beach house in the Hamptons, and then you're a bad millionaire.
Okay. Well, I'm glad we've established there's some kind of separation there. I'm glad that Bernie Sanders is now so very clear. Oh, wait. I wanted to get to this. I couldn't believe. I love it. I mean, I don't hide this. You guys all know. I think Tucker is great. I think his show is excellent. I think he's very entertaining, very smart, and he's always been very, very kind to me, which is, I will tell you, rare from the alpha males in this media business. There are a few who are very nice to me and a lot that are hoping that I get hit by a bus, but maybe that's a conversation we'll have another time. Tucker's great, and I just love this. Just play 26. This is fantastic.
CNN went wall to wall with it all day under strict instructions from their reclusive dwarf king to squeeze every last drop of partisan drama from the proceedings. If you got stuck in an airport and happened to catch some of it, you can testify to how pointless and tiresome the whole thing was. If nothing else, it made you realize that Democrats really have no master plan for impeachment, whatever you may suspect. They clearly haven't thought it through. They're making it up as they go along, as most people in D.C. are. And in the end, impeachment almost certainly will hurt them. The whole premise is just too dumb not to hurt them.
He called Jeff Zucker, the president of CNN, who's a jerk, called him a reclusive dwarf king. I don't think Tucker's going to get a job from Zucker anytime soon. Tucker versus Zucker. Tucker won that battle. Wow. I did not know that that Big T would go there, but he did. Oh, and since we're having a little fun at CNN's expense, which is always entertaining and always worthwhile, because CNN is. I was hoping that Don Jr. was going to say that CNN's the worst, because I think CNN's the worst, but he didn't want to specify, so I can understand. But there's this thing at CNN where they like to do. They like to really dig in on Kellyanne Conway and the differences that she has. She's one of the president's most senior spokespersons, but the differences that she has with her husband, George Conway. And this is a recurring, and it's just very strange. Like, CNN really seems, their audience really likes this marital strife storyline that they push of, you have a prominent woman who works for a president, you have a husband who doesn't like that president. They keep bringing it up. And Kellyanne Conway does not appreciate when they do. This was her with Wolf Blitzer. Let's hear some of the exchange.
a sensitive question, and it's a political question. It's a substantive question. I don't want to talk about your marriage. I know that there are issues there. Your husband, George Conway, he's a lawyer.
Did you just say?
Your husband, George Conway.
Did you just say there are issues there? You don't want to talk about marriage?
I don't want to talk about. No, I don't want to talk.
Why did you say that?
I don't want to talk about your marriage. I don't want to talk about your. I want to talk about a substantive point that your husband, George Conway, made. He was on television all day yesterday during the first day of the impeachment hearings, and he said this about the President of the United States. I just want your reaction to the substance of what he said.
So before you play the clip, which I haven't seen, why? And why are you doing that?
Because he's a legal scholar, he's a lawyer, and he was really going after the President of the United States, and he was all over television yesterday.
And come on.
I just want you to.
And he's married to me?
What, you know, he happens to be married to you. What's
But
wrong with that?
you can run the clip of Jeffrey. He happens to be married to me. That's bizarre.
Correct. But he's also a legal scholar. He's got a substantive point.
You can tell Wolf knows he's like he's on some shaky ground here, but the audience loves it. The audience is going to want it. You know, they're going to want to see Kellyanne Conway on the hot seat. Oh, your husband said this, and you don't agree with your husband, so what do we make of that? They just look, folks. They really. I was gonna say they can't help themselves. They can. They choose not to. They like to go with this storyline of Kellyanne Conway and her husband in a feud because their audience likes to think of a prominent Trump-supporting female who, you know, has trouble on the home front because of what her husband says. I mean, it's really messed up. Sensitive question, he goes. Why are you going to ask? This is the president's senior advisor, senior counselor. Why are you going to start asking a question that's sensitive, that's personal? That's not really. And he goes, you know, there's issues there. And he tries to just jump past that. She goes, oh, hold on a second. And then she forced him to say, why are you asking me about him? Because he's my husband. Why are you trying to get me to go against my husband on national TV? Wolf. What's this all about? I mean, aren't there more important things for the country to be hearing about than whether or not Mr. and Mrs. Conway disagree on the nature of the president and what he's doing? One would think that CNN would have the common sense or the common decency, really. And that's what she went on to say. We didn't play the whole clip. You know, why do you guys have no decency? Why can't you understand that what you're doing here is wrong, that what you are presenting here, what you're promoting here is something that makes a mockery of CNN? And she said that when she grew up, she used to watch CNN and really respected it. And I have to tell you, you know, I never liked CNN. I was never somebody who's like, oh, you know, I always knew it was liberal. I always knew that it was kind of the cable news channel of the elites in some way, of the liberal elites. But I thought that it at least was professional. I thought there was a profession, and I think there used to be a professionalism in what they did, and it has just been abandoned. It has just been absolutely cast away in favor of this anti-Trumpism, and I think it really does have to do with as Tucker says, the reclusive dwarf king of CNN has a personal feud with this president, and will not be satisfied, will not be happy until that feud is satiated by the president either losing an election or, even better, getting pushed out of office. That is what they would like to see. It's just, it's not going to change anytime soon. Unfortunately, it's not going to change at all. But this is where we are, and this is my expectation going forward, is that CNN is going to get even crazier. Even crazier. Oh, wait, we got the president met with Erdogan. I didn't get to this yet today. Play 24.
We have a great relationship with the Kurds. We have had. We're with them now. We get along with them. And by the way, I think the president, he may have some factions within the Kurds, but I think the president has a great relationship with the Kurds. Many Kurds live currently in Turkey, and they're happy and they're taken care of, including health care. We were talking about it before, including health care and education and other things.
I know, look, it's some complexities here, but Turkey could use a brushback pitch or two from the United States. The Turkish government is not nearly as helpful and as much of an ally. I mean, for a NATO allied country to take the positions that Turkey has been taking, not just recently, but in recent years, stretching back for a while. They also went with the S-400 missile system, buying it from Russia, which is raising questions about, okay, well, we're not going to give them F-35s if they don't get rid of the S-400 missile system, right? Turkey is caught in between the pull of Russia and the pull of the West. And one of the issues is that the Turkish people, especially outside of Istanbul and the main cities, the Turkish people do prefer this. There are some countries, Russia's one of them, Turkey's one of them, where they have a cultural affinity for the strongman role in leadership. They want somebody who embodies the nation. They want somebody who's the decider in this way. And so while we get very upset about Turkey is one of the worst places in the world to be a journalist. I think they've jailed more journalists than any other country, or have more of them in prison than any other country. There's all kinds of crackdowns and authoritarianism. Authoritarianism in some countries is popular, and Turkey is one of them. So this is not a situation that I think is going to improve anytime soon. And the president being friendly with Erdogan in this way is... look, he's a state visit. He's coming to the White House. I get it. But Turkey is not friendly to the Kurds on the other side of the Turkish border. That much is for sure. The Turks have already shown themselves to be maniacally anti-Kurd. In fact, I think there was some iPad that Erdogan brought in that he was trying to show how bad the Kurds are to Trump. And I'm hoping that this didn't sink in any meaningful way.
It's time for roll call.
It's time for roll call, everybody. Facebook.com/Buck Sexton or Team Buck at iHeartMedia.com. All right, man, let's get to it. Aaron. Hey, Buck. I'm a little behind on podcasts. I always say the best for last. So I agree it's ridiculous to get emotional over politics, but I have to admit, when my husband woke me up in the middle of the night and told me that Trump won, at first I thought he was joking, but that was immediately followed by an overwhelming sense of glee, and I didn't even vote for him. I was just so happy the machine was finally defeated, and I sadistically laughed and laughed as they showed all of her supporters weeping and thoroughly enjoyed watching the shock and awe on all the journalists' faces. I do, however, become seriously emotional over my childhood movies, and I was about to cancel my subscription to Disney when I heard that they cut the original We Are Siamese song. I think it's important to point out they're, in fact, Siamese cats. That would be worse than what Lucas did the original Star Wars. It would be censorship. So I had to investigate this claim, and good news. Disney did not cut that scene, nor did they cut out the Italian scene. There's a remake with actual animals. Perhaps that's what they were talking about? I also love The Sword and the Stone, and if you do name your dog Archimedes, you'll have to call him by his whole name. Don't listen to Mark. You do a perfect Archimedes impression. Thank you. That's right. That's just a great name. I might have to steal it. Who, what, Archimedes? Let's see what we have here. Yeah, I think that's, I don't know if, I haven't checked. Wait, do I have to sign up for the Disney thing? How does this work? Is this like a Netflix thing? I just have to subscribe to it?
Yes.
How much is it?
I think it's $6.99 a month, something like that.
So what other than the Disney movies, like what do I get that's good? What does Disney own that's good?
Oh, they own everything, Buck.
Yeah, right.
There's nothing they don't own. All the Marvel movies are there, as if you care. All the Marvel movies, yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of others. So The Simpsons is now owned by Disney, so all 30 seasons of The Simpsons is on there. There's a lot.
Wow.
And they're actually doing a package. You can get Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus for like $12.99 a month.
Huh.
Yeah.
Man, I just need Fox News, and then I'm going to cut the cord. So how do I get digital Fox News, and then I just cut because I just need to be able to watch the news, and I can't watch CNN.
Isn't Fox News on Pluto?
I kind of need all the. I don't think it's the full channel.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I should check that out.
Yeah.
Pluto channel 248, which is the first, which is the best channel ever.
You don't
on
need
Pluto.
Fox when you've got Pluto.
That's correct. Well, I just need to know what's going on in breaking news world. Sean writes, "Hey Buck, I think that you have said that you don't watch South Park, but if you get a chance, treat yourself to last night's episode. They take on gender identity Macho Man Randy Savage is involved, and yes, it is Savage. Shields high from behind enemy lines in California. Did you see this gender identity thing with this? Are you a South Park guy?
I'll watch it. I just don't watch it religiously.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff. It's funny.
Yeah, South Park is a very funny show generally.
Yeah.
I just
Simpsons? Are you a Simpsons guy?
I used to be, like everyone.
Yeah.
The fact that it's still on
It's pretty
is
remarkable.
amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. All right, cool. Let's see here. John Buck, thank you for being anti-dynasty. Our founding fathers would be proud. I'm the same way. My friends give me grief because I like your opinion on that. Well, thank you, John. I think we're right. I think it's just weird. You know, I think nepotism is bad. I think dynasties are bad. I don't like any of this. I don't like when anybody does it. Can't agree with it. So, you know, people can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm right. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I'm right. Gary, Buck, what's up with the excruciating long musical intro into each of your segments? I tune in to hear your views and commentary, not some second-rate filler music at the beginning and end of each segment. Do you need to use this music for bathroom breaks? The musical lead-ins have become so tedious that I switched the station so as not to subject myself to the music. I don't know, what is he talking about on the terrestrial radio side?
Yes, on radio. There's music.
Is there anything that we can do about that? Not really.
No,
right?
the
stations have to
the
line up.
stations. Yeah, that's just the way it is. That's all syndicated radio shows.
Yeah, that's what I
There's
thought.
music. Listen to the podcast.
I mean,
if you really hate it that
do we
much.
play more music than other people on there?
I don't think so. No, I think we play a lot less.
Okay. Yeah, we don't do any of we don't come in with,
Yeah, we don't come in
40
with
or whatever.
random songs
Yeah.
like a lot of shows do.
I mean, I don't know, Gary. We love you, man. Stay with the Freedom Hut. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how we
Listen to the podcast if it really bothers you that
listen
much.
to the podcast. There you go. Listen to the podcast. Because we don't have the music on the podcast. So there you go. Jonathan writes, sorry to say, but I am done with Drudge. Can't really take the liberal slant. Side note, as I'm here, both make the claim, whose head is bigger on Fox, you or Dan Bongino? I'm kidding. Keep us safe, keep us warm. Shields high. Dan Bongino's got a legit cranium. I respect the dome. He's got it's big. Is it as big as my head, though? I don't know. We'd have to weigh them out. I mean, I have a noggin. This thing is enormous.
We had to widen the door in the studio.
I mean, it's like Bonk from Bonk's Adventure, which was a Turbo Graphics 16 game. It's probably before your time. You don't even know what Turbo Graphics 16
I have no idea what that is.
So there was a time when there were these competitors to... Is PlayStation... Is there Nintendo still?
Yeah, Nintendo Switch.
I didn't even know what that was. Wow, okay. I thought PlayStation basically dominated the market now.
Well, there's PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo still.
Oh, Xbox.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, those are the three.
Those are the three.
There was a little time when there would be these video game systems that were... And TurboGrafx 16 was one of them. And it actually had some pretty good games. And I remember it was a handheld... This is how old I am. It was a handheld video game player that was in color. And had this tiny, like a 2-inch by 2-inch screen. Or, something. And it was in color, though. And
everyone else is playing a Game Boy, and you have this ridiculous knockoff thing that nobody's ever heard of.
This was more...
Before a Game Boy?
This was like a souped-up version again. This was super expensive. It was like $350 back in the early 90s. This was like the...
But it didn't have like Pokemon and all the fun games the actual people were playing?
Before your time. You don't need, this is so before your time. You're not even...
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were like... you weren't even in the womb. You were...
I was
did not yet
alive when the
exist.
Game Boy Color came out.
This is pre-Game Boy Color, I think. Anyway, it was revolutionary for its time. And there was a game called Bonk's Adventure. And it was a caveman with a giant head. And he would run around smacking people with his giant head. That was his weapon.
That's you.
He didn't quite have I think he was bald, though, so he didn't have quite the swoop. But I am Bonk. From
Well, you'd
Bonk.
mess up your hair if you tried to headbutt
Correct.
people.
I can't do
You'd
that.
need a helmet or something.
That's crazy. We can't have that.
Now we know about concussions. So.
Also true. Important thing to avoid. Let's get back into roll call here. John writes, Buck, this should scare you. Glenn Beck presents the Democrats' Hydra. Huh. I got to check out with this. I don't know what Glenn's been up to. I got to go visit Glenn. I haven't seen Glenn in a while. I haven't talked to Glenn in a while. I hope he's good. And I gotta check it out. Adam, I check Glenn out and make sure he's doing okay. Adam, Elizabeth Warren sounds like Stewart's mom from Mad TV. I'll have to take your word for it. I don't know. And also, you do a fantastic job speaking to truth. I listen daily on my hour drive home from work. Shields high, brother. Well, Adam, thank you. And that's one of the great things. That's why we put the podcast out earlier, so that people could listen whenever they want in the afternoon. This show is up every day before you leave work, for the most part, for most of you. It's up in drive time all across the country. So I want this to be the show you listen to every day. I want you guys to be listening to the Buck Sexton Show. It's up by 3 Eastern. You know, producer Mark is like the guy who is running the Matrix, and he makes sure the Matrix runs on time. That's gonna be it for today, team. Thanks so much for calling. I mean, for joining and for writing in, maybe for calling in. We will talk to you tomorrow. Shields high.